And now, I'm very humbled and excited to ask our first speaker to come up to the stage to talk about the fight to stop terror financing. Dr. Shlomit Wagman, Chief Regulatory Compliance Officer at Rapyd, former chair of Israel Financial Crime Authority, a fellow of Harvard. Shlomit, the stage is yours.
Okay, thank you. Hi, good morning. Pleasure being here. In the next couple of minutes, I'll try to bring you into my world. Yesterday, I spoke on AI and financial crime, but today we're going to speak about terrorism and how to combat it, and in particular, how technology can assist doing so. And special emphasis will be given to the fintech industry and the Israeli fintech industry post-October 7. As mentioned, I'm coming with a unique background, both private sector, governmental sector. I was the first woman to be the head of the Israeli Financial Crime Agency and the thanks, and the Privacy Protection Authority, and always happy to be here in this conference on every year. So let's speak for a minute about terrorism. September 11, how much it cost to conduct that? Give me some amounts. So many times I hear $1 billion, $50 million, $500,000. That's it, to take, to bring the entire world into a chaos. So that was the amounts that needed in order to conduct this operation. And since then, the world decided to take the exact same approach that it has taken with respect to with respect to terrorism, namely to follow the money. The most efficient way to combat terrorism is to stop its funding. And how that is being done? To use financial intelligence. Follow the money. So yesterday we spoke about AI. There's a lot of AI behind it. But what do you see here in this Rorschach photo? What I see here, this is a real case of terrorism financing. This is a network of terrorists that was detected by the Israeli authorities, including tax authorities, security services, my authority, the Financial Intelligence Unit, and Israel Police and Tax authorities. That combines all the data that we had, and we took over 21 organizations overnight, just based upon financial intelligence. So when we want to do something, when we want to follow the money, how do we do that? And let's take it into the regional context this year. Unfortunately, we have the real example. In many countries, they're just speaking about terror organization, generally speaking, and everything happens far away. Well, we are in the place in which it happens, so let's look at everything from Hamas' perspective. So what are the sources of funding of Hamas? There are a couple of major channels. First and foremost, state sponsorship, Iran and Qatar. Together, they are responsible for about $500 million a year. In addition, it has a very extensive business portfolio. And we also see humanitarian aid, such as UNRWA and such, that is also subsidizing it. Fundraising, including in crypto, as we'll speak in a minute, and taxes on the population. How funds are being transferred? So one of the most popular way is to do hawala. And I'm talking about it here because we are in more fintech, cyber environment, but this is the old traditional way. Hawala means that money is being transferred between different counterparts without leaving any trace on the legitimate financial system. Let's assume that I have a money exchange in Gaza, and I have a friend with money exchange in Turkey, for example. What I would do, he would receive a suitcase with cash from Iran. We'll store it there and tell me to conduct transactions on my side. People that have legitimate reasons to send money abroad from Gaza for buying product, for importer and so forth, will come to me, to my change, to my money exchange, and they will give me the money. I will collect it. I will call my friend in Turkey, tell him, hey, can you transfer $300,000 to that person, to that company, and so forth. And the funds that I have in my own exchange in Gaza will be used for Hamas. That way, we transferred any amount that you want to imagine without leaving any trace on the financial legitimate system. By the way, the Jews also have this system. How does it call? Gmach, but that's for another lecture. So that's a very popular way to transfer funds. Another popular method is, the old way, cash that goes through Gaza. Some of it, in this case, went even directly via suitcases from Qatar, which, on record, this is something that, as the head of the Israeli financial crime agency, I strongly opposed to. So they said, you know what, so it will not cross Israel, it'll just bring it somewhere, through another path. But that is something that will be still investigated, probably. Trade-based terrorism financing, that's a very popular way. Why sending money if we could say actually product? So let's assume that we have containers filled with toys, babies' food, anything else that you'll just imagine. We'll ship it to Gaza, people will sell it, and all the revenue will go to Hamas. That's a very useful way to do that. Again, we trace many cases of that. And Ozark, looking at money laundering pattern, it also worked for terrorism financing, building a global portfolio of companies and transferring funds between them. That's a very popular method also for terrorism financing. Here, I'll show you in a minute, the Israeli intelligence did a wonderful job in literally mapping the infrastructure and the business portfolio of Hamas. Just to give you a hint, because today we'll, it's not an in-depth discussion about Hamas because we want to get into the tech in a minute, I will say that Hamas has lots of companies in Algeria, Sudan, and other countries that are doing mining and working on critical infrastructures, like paving roads and so forth. Who can think what else that could be used for? To transfer also not only funding, but also knowledge and equipment to build tunnels. That's something that also makes sense, because if you have a company that does mining in another country, you know how to do it and you have the equipment. So we have business portfolio, and we'll see that in a minute, what some of part that we already know of. And last but not least, crypto. Crypto became a very popular method for Hamas. It was one of the early birds that used that after ISIS, and they started collecting funds since 2019. We'll get back to it in a minute. So what can be done? We've seen all of that. What can be done? So along the years, there were a lot of activities that were taking place. If I spoke about the business portfolio that Israel was able to identify, Israel, perhaps I will say that Israel as a country cannot combat Hamas itself. And I'll tell you another secret. The funds of Hamas are not being held within the Israeli economy. Like in Bank Hapoalim or Bank Leumi, they don't have Hamas funds, because you know what? Do you remember the slide that I showed you earlier? We know more or less how to trace those funds. The Israeli financial system is extremely alerted to terrorism financing, and that's not the market in which they operate. So where do they operate? International banks, financial payment companies, and crypto. They are all over the world other than Israel. And this is why Israel itself cannot stop Hamas funding. So as part of mapping the portfolio of Hamas, Israel was able, together with other stakeholders around the world, to understand that a major company in Turkey, and Turkey is a major hub for Hamas financial activity, actually a publicly traded company called Trendgaio is owned by Hamas. In order to find how, and prove that, that's an extremely challenging mission. You need to do a lot of financial investigation to create the infrastructure, to do all the financial intelligence. But at the end of the day, how do I know that Israel was able to prove that? The proof is in the pudding, as they say, because OFAC designated that company. And the designation was done in May 2022. A publicly traded company. Now, if we have here in the audience people from the financial markets, fintech industry or banks, What happens when the US is designating a company? OFAC, not less than that. We stopped breathing. Everything stops. At that moment, you cannot provide any services to that company anymore. But instead, what we see, and that's the stock of the company, and it's a rare opportunity to look into Turkey's economy because it's a publicly traded company. This is the date in which the company was designated by OFAC, May 22nd, and here this is like October 7th. Since then, it went up 4 times. It's 12 here. By the way, I checked a couple of days ago, it was 15. 5 times. What does it mean? That Turkey not only does not obey to OFAC sanctions, but it also encouraged the company and allow it to work. Now, that means that Hamas has kupaktana, has like an ability to fund itself in a rainy day if for some reason Qatar or Iran are unable to send its funding, or if all other channels are not operating well. So that's a major failure that existed. And also, in addition, what else, for example, of what could be done? This is a map of blockchain analytics, crypto investigation, in which we've seen how Israel was able to designate crypto wallets that were associated with Hamas, donation that went through those wallets. Israel designated them, and then immediately the private sector, a lot of blockchain analytics was conducted in order to draft this map and seize the funds. Dozens of millions of dollars were seized along the years from Hamas, and at some point, in April 2023, Hamas is sending a public announcement, a press release, extremely rare, saying that they are suspending Bitcoin fundraising. And why is that so? So I'll do a short double click because that's a different lecture on how we trace crypto transactions. But due to a legal infrastructure that we were able to put in place, I was part of that, part of the FATF, Financial Action Task Force. We were able to create a network of monitoring on crypto that allows law enforcement authority to get information about transactions and reach to bad actors. An actor that is being identified as related to terrorism financing activity, all of its funds, accounts, transactions are being blacklisted, and they are not able to conduct transactions anymore. So what happens is that Hamas supporter that donated some funds to Hamas, even if that would be like $1, and even if they did not know that this is actually Hamas because they just thought that they're doing like humanitarian donations or something like that, their funds were frozen, so they got into trouble, and this is why Hamas stopped raising funds through Bitcoin. However, there is an asterisk. It doesn't mean that they stopped, that they neglected crypto altogether. They just left Bitcoin, which is highly monitored. They moved to Tron and other coins. But again, we could speak about it on another lecture. So let's focus here about fintech technology and what could be done with that respect. So after October 7th, I was in Boston. I'm spending a semester a year at Harvard. I was there. I felt, that I have to do something. Now, if I were in Israel, I probably would have opened a war room of AI or just cooking food for soldiers or doing something. But I wasn't here, so what did I do? I started picking up the phone and writing emails to my former colleagues, referring them to what we did together a couple of years ago with respect to ISIS, to Daesh. And over there, we did a financial enforcement on Daesh that brought, yielded great results. And the main thing that was conducted was international collaboration. As I mentioned earlier, this is not a combat of one country alone, and you have to have a global coalition. And I referred to my role as the head of the operational working group at FATF. This is the organization that is in charge of designing and imposing global policy on terrorism financing and money laundering. And I suggested them that we'll do the same thing with respect to Hamas. I designed a program, and shortly after, I found myself in the US Senate presenting my program, which I'm glad to say that some of it, major part of it, have been adopted already. The plan, I will not go over the details, just a couple of highlights. First, emphasizing that this is an international effort. No one country alone can work on that. We need to work with international organizations and support that. Second, intelligence. Intelligence collaboration is needed. Funds are spread across the globe. It's not in one country, not in one financial institution, not in one type of asset. We see real estate, we see companies, many type of assets, and there is a need to collaborate on that. And I suggested to create a coalition of financial intelligence units. Those are the units in every country that needs to collaborate on that. And they established indeed a task force of 12 FIUs, financial intelligence units, which grew to 20 with amazing and great result with that respect. And once you are starting to look for assets, you find them. They started designating Hamas in additional countries, not only in the US, in Israel, and some part of Europe where it was already designated in the past. And then once it was designated and we have international collaboration, intelligence collaboration, again, guess what? Sinwar's assets were found in Paris, real estate. Now, France could have found it earlier. It was not A, a priority. B, international collaboration was not conducted and they did not look for that. Many assets were traced and found and seized and confiscated in Australia, in Denmark, in Germany, in the UK, France, and all over the world. And there are also prizes on the heads of major financial players in that respect. Also, and now we're getting to the private sector, information sharing with the private sector. It is extremely hard to find those funds in financial systems, and this is where technology needs to assist us, but authorities have to provide information. Most companies do not know that illicit counterparts or illicit players are using them to conduct illegal activity. It doesn't have smell. It doesn't have, there are special characteristics, but it's very hard to identify that. So you need to get information. Hamas will not hold a bank account saying Hamas.ltd or com or whatever. It will be much more sophisticated. It will be a network and layering and a very complex structure that is very hard to identify, and that needs to be done, and the technology is a major part. We'll see in a minute. An additional part, we'll leave it out. But it wasn't only me who conducted transactions or who went into action on October 7. The entire Israeli fintech industry also got into the field, and the fintech industry started to act on the topic. And already on October 10th, if I'm not mistaken, a war room was established with many fintech companies that started to collaborate. Now, as I was sitting in my room and was thinking, what can I do? Many additional experts, like you here in the audience, that are experts in tracing funds, in going over networks, finding links and networks, and find out where the funds or where the networks are exist in social media, started to work. And this war room was extremely efficient, and companies started to find collaborating with each other, finding assets. For example, in my company, in Rapyd, the team was able to identify that one of the live streaming platforms that we provide service to was actually providing services to Hamas without knowing. Again, in those very cold countries across the ocean, they have no awareness that Gaza now could be connected to terrorism, and you need these guidelines to explain it to them. The case was brought to authorities, and the funds were allocated. But what's more interesting, and I think that this is an evolution of data. So people here in Israel, and those are screenshots from groups like WhatsApp group that existed back then, people started to find all those fundraising campaigns. Variety of payment methods, IBAN's number, payment wallet, crypto, everything was there. So what can be done? This is like a real conversation or real conversations in WhatsApp group. And it started, look at the evolution. I think that it's really nice. Guys, someone is writing down all the information that we're getting, although the screenshot that I've just showed you. And then, hey, I open a Google form, put it here. And then I have a file, put it here. I establish a channel to send it to law authorities. I'm doing that all together. I spoke with law authorities. I know how they want to receive the data, and so forth and so forth. And then we see like the next stage of the evolution, which went into like file that authorities can work with. And by the way, I think that this is the first war ever in which the pyramid of intelligence changed completely. Usually, intelligence community, law enforcement are collecting data, and they are sharing whatever is needed with private sector. Here, the opposite process happened. People from the private sector were able, they had the technology and the tools to find via social networks and social media and so forth, the networks, and they collected the data, did some analysis to it and sent it to authorities who used that and then designated and went after those organizations. That's, by the way, the third stage of evolution. This is an NGO that was established after October 7. This one is called Even. And this is what they learned to do after October 7th with all the data. So we moved from those like Excel sheet to this chart. And what they do, and by the way, I predict that we're going to see like a baby boom of RegTech, regulation technology companies after October 7th, because all of a sudden, all the talent that is here, that is located here in Israel, realized that this technology could also be also used for good cause and creating those platforms. And there are other, Shomer Israel and other. I think that this is a great example. If someone wants to join them, happy to connect. But let's look now between fintech and the future, where the future lays and what could be done then. So we are getting closer to the day after. Hopefully, we'll be there very, very soon. And at the day after, we need to think what should be done. Now, as I explained earlier, funds are flowing to Gaza. Most of it went to Hamas. In fact, in the past 15 years, funds were streamlined from countries to the reconstructions of Gaza after each conflict, summing up to an amount which is 4 times the Marshall Plan. The Marshall Plan, that was the financial aid provided by the US to Europe after World War II. 4 times in nominal values of Marshall Plan has been invested in the past years in Gaza. If the funds would have went to civil infrastructure, Gaza could have looked like Dubai. Instead, we have the underground metro of Gaza, and it's obvious where funds are going. So I was started to thinking, what can be done, and also, Hamas is an idea, it's not going to go away. Intelligence report of the US intelligence says that, I heard that yesterday, the head of the Israeli Malal, the Israeli NSA, said that, if we won't do something actively, funds will continue go to Hamas, doesn't matter which political arrangement will be set there. So I sat and drafted a plan for the fintech industry on what could be done at the day after in order to avoid funds being funneled to Hamas again. And my program suggests that aim to countries and governments that want to donate to the reconstruction of Gaza, that instead of doing that with cash, with money exchangers, or Palestinian banks, which are not supervised by the international community for a variety of reasons, we should move to fintech. Now, fintech environment, digital wallets, for example, as you here know, is extremely supervised. It's monitored, it is transparent, you could trace funds. All you need is just cell phones, and that's it, basically. QR code, that's it. You don't need more than that in order to create this environment. Everything is fully KYC, know your client, you know that here. Transparent, visible. You could create closed garden environment and actually know what's happening there. But rest assured, we're not speaking about mass surveillance environment, but to create an environment that will use privacy-enhancing technologies such as zero-knowledge proof and so forth to ensure that we're not monitoring specifically each citizen or each person, but we're looking at the network trends and patterns and using fraud detection tools and AML tools in order to ensure that funds that countries are streamlining to people in need will go to the right causes. I draw a lot of ideas from the experience of my company, Rapyd, that is providing this service to refugees in certain parts of the world. By the way, it also helps financial inclusion. There are projects around the world in Africa and in other countries, in Ukraine, when you want to send support to people that do not have identification, and there are ways to do that. In addition, we could also use the blockchain technology, not crypto, but blockchain, and create what's interesting about blockchain is that it's fully transparent. So you could create private blockchains network, Gaza coin, I would suggest, or just create like a CBDC, central bank digital coins, to use in a closed garden model. Everything is fully KYC, on-ramp, off-ramp. The technology exists, it doesn't take much, and every cent spent to the reconstruction could be monitored. There are additional elements to the program, including doing a close monitoring and oversight mechanism, ensuring that each project is also being funded only once. Let's say that 5 countries are donating to build a hospital. We could make sure this time that there is like the funds do go to 5 different hospitals, and not like it was the case in the past, 1 hospital and 4 underground tunnels below it. So you could, you could understand where it goes, and it could even turn Gaza, which is a very small area, into a fintech hub. Countries are going to spend between $30 to $50 billion in the next couple of years, lots of funding. That's a great opportunity for the international community, assuming that all countries will use this channel as opposed to cash and money exchanger and banks, which is the case right now. So with that, that's a project that I'm doing pro bono. Happy to have as many participants as possible. All the technology is there. The project is not going to be run from Israel, but internationally, and hopefully it will be used. Let's avoid making the same mistakes and expecting different results. I really think that that could change the environment, and that was a pleasure being here. Thank you so much, and enjoy the day.